Hello, my name is Thomas Nelson. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be discussing the $100 startup. So let's get right into it. Alright, so the $100 startup. Reinvent the way you make a living, do what you love, and create a new future. This book is sort of an option 3 book. Option 1 being go out and get a job, work 40 years, the whole normal package that we tend to think about as adult life. Option 2 is go out and work really hard for several years, start a high value business, sell the business, and then move on to the next thing or move on to the beach. And that's a perfectly valid option too. This is an option 3 business. What I mean by that is there's the concept that perhaps you can just do what you like. Perhaps you can build a business based around things that you actually want to do so that you can enjoy your work, enjoy your life, make a difference in the world, and have that be your career. In the past, a lot of people found that they could do that with an actual career working for a large company or whatever, but as time has changed, that seems to be becoming much more difficult. Throughout this book, we're going to talk about several people who've done this, and I'll give you brief introductions on them. I would like to show you some internet videos on them, but where I'm working right now, I don't have internet, so I'm recording this for later upload. So the first chapter in $100 Startup is called Renaissance, and we will be dealing with several entrepreneurs. If you're in one of my classes, the first 4 of these contain links, and you can follow those links from whatever course management system we happen to be using right now. The first couple is Michael and Mary Ruth. Michael had a good corporate gig going for a while. Everything was hunky-dory. If you read chapter 1, you know his story. Basically, things were going great, and then he, out of the blue, got downsized, which is fired, right? It's nice that we have terms to say things are different than what they are, but basically he just got fired. And he stumbled around for a while, and he ended up selling mattresses very successfully in a very cool business in Oregon. Also in Portland, Sarah Young, in a time when everything was going, retail was going downhill and everything was moving digital, opened a physical real-world yarn store that did pretty well. Susanna Conway was a photographer, and she discovered that she could make more money teaching people to take good photographs than she could through actually taking pictures. And Benny Lewis is awesome. Benny Lewis is a language hacker. He wrote a great book. Search for it on Amazon. Basically, it's how to learn any language. And he's learned dozens and dozens of languages. I think they're not dozens, that's a lot. He's learned several languages, and he's from Ireland. He goes around the world doing what he calls language hacking, and he's turned that into a business. Megan Hunt, I think, did wedding accessories. There's more about her in the book, and I don't remember Scott Meyer. But all of these entrepreneurs followed the $100 startup business model. And what the $100 business model is the idea that you don't need a lot of resources to start a business. If you and I were going to go start a factory, that might take millions of dollars, it might take land, it might take all sorts of stuff. But all of these people followed this business model where they were doing something that they loved to do. The startup cost was kept really low, not exactly $100 in all cases, but within the realm of what most normal people could generate. All of the businesses that are profiled in the book, and all of the skills that we talk about, and all of the takeaways have led to multiple instances of $50,000 net income. They don't require any special skills. Now, that does not mean they don't require skills. For instance, one of the guys we're going to talk about in this book learned how to roast coffee. Another, learned how to open a coffee shop and that sort of thing. That doesn't, that's not a skill that you just naturally are born with. It's something you have to learn. But it's not something, say, like a dentist or a doctor, where there's a long, long learning period, a very expensive learning period, and most importantly, a ton of regulation. So I think when we say no special skills, what we mean are things that average people can learn and things that aren't heavily regulated. Also, in order to be in this book, they had to give full financial disclosure, and their business had to have fewer than 5 employees. And I like that number because any more than 5 employees, and it starts getting really, really hard to manage. I've never been able to manage more than about a dozen employees, and I've started several businesses. Once you get a large number of employees, it becomes more work managing them than it does actually running a business, which is why we have middle management. So these rules and 3 lessons lead to a possible path to success. So let's look at these lessons. Primarily, the biggest lesson in this whole book, the one thing that if you could get this and take it away, it would probably be sufficient in and of itself to make this book worthwhile, is that if you take what you're passionate about and find where other people also care about it, that area is called convergence. And convergence is where a lot of times there is money to be made. If you have something that you're really, really passionate about, but nobody else cares, you might be able to develop the greatest skill in the world. But if other people aren't willing to pay for it, it's not going to lead to an income. But if you could develop a skill that other people do care about, and sometimes it's an odd thing. I mean, if you think about baseball, baseball is a weird thing to be really, really good at, but there's a huge industry around baseball. It doesn't really produce anything for society other than entertainment. Not that that's a bad thing. But there are people who teach people how to hit baseballs for a living. That's their job. There are other people who teach people how to catch baseballs. And, you guys understand that aspect of business. Okay, so the second lesson is really skill transformation. Skill transformation is taking something that you know how to do in one area and moving it into being a good thing in another area. For instance, I was a locksmith for a long time. I met this guy who used to work for the CIA. And as in the CIA, his job was to try and figure out ways around physical security. Once he retired, he took that knowledge and started applying it in the regular world, in the world you and I live in, not the super high security world of government secrets. But he looked at normal locks and said, well, how can I get around this normal lock in a way that would, that would get me in? And obviously, you can become a burglar and do that. But he chose to develop tools that he could sell to other locksmiths and turned into a great business for him. Politicians leverage their skill with knowing how the political system works to become lobbyists. Actors, in turn, leverage their skills at convincing people that they are something, or that they're sincere and earnest, and become politicians. Engineers often become inventors. Jobs in service industries often lead to other jobs with people skills, and when you have people skills, you can start to leverage those any number of ways. Finally, we have the third lesson, which is really just a recap of the second lesson, which is if you're passionate about something and that something is also useful, that can very easily lead to success. So it all boils down to a convergence of your passions and abilities with other people's passions and inabilities. And what we're going to do throughout this is we're going to apply these lessons to relatively simple business frameworks. And the primary business framework that we have is to have something to sell. Product, service, whatever. And then we have to have a way to find customers, which, spoiler alert, in these days is usually the internet. So we find a way, we have something to sell, we have a way to find customers, and we have a way to get paid. Once we have that, we have a business. I mean, there's more to it, obviously, than that, and there will be a lot of things that we hang on that framework. But it really boils down to just having something to sell, finding the people who want to buy it, and then facilitating their ability to buy it. That's kind of the whole thing. The next chapter builds a little bit larger model. We can see that here. And it says, figure out what you want to sell. Is it a product? Is it a service? Is it a book? Is it an ebook? Is it consulting? Whatever it is. Decide on what it is. Set up a website. Develop an offer. 30-minute phone call for $99. Five baseball lessons for $400. Whatever your offer is, you make your offer. Ensure you have a way to get paid, which in today's world is super easy. Online, you can instantaneously set up PayPal. You can also get services like Square. There are shopping cart services that are absolutely free to download and set up, and they only take a small percentage when you use them. So announce your offer to the world, and then repeat. That's pretty much the whole thing. What else is in Chapter 2? Okay, Chapter 2 is give them the fish. So we've all heard, give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish and he eats for a lifetime. We've also heard, give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish and he drinks beer all weekend. Both of those are fun, but what does this really mean? I mean, the idea of giving someone a fish is supposed to be, in the original way that they interpret that, as charity. And the idea of teaching them to fish is teaching people to be self-sufficient. But people don't necessarily want to be self-sufficient in every area of their life all the time. I mean, if you carry it to its ridiculous extent, yes, you do want to learn how to write, perhaps, but do you want to know how to make your own ink pen? Probably not. You might want to know how to cook, but you may not want to know how to farm. You might not even want to know how to cook. You might just want to go to a restaurant and say, hey, give me the fish on a plate ready to eat. Okay, so people only buy things that they value. So what is value? I've come to the conclusion that value is something that is desirable and of worth created through exchange or effort. That is, you create value. Value in a nutshell means helping people. And how do we know something is valuable? That's an interesting question, but I believe that value can be expressed by price. That is, the higher as a group we value something, the more it costs. So you can look at something and say that's $10, and then look at something else and say that's $100. You can say that's more valuable. And that's important because people will only buy things that they value. If you want people to buy your product or service, they have to value it. People value the things they want. But really, the products and services are always a mean to the end, to an end. They want more love, more money, more acceptance, more happiness, right? And they want less stress, less conflict, less uncertainty. If they're hungry, they want a full feeling in their belly, and so on and so forth. So when you're focusing on what people want, think about the underlying need and figure out what they want. If they don't know what they want, sometimes that's a huge opportunity. If you think about the iPod, before the iPod existed, we didn't really even know that we wanted to carry around 400 hours worth of music in our pocket. That wasn't something that someone, if you'd ask someone on the street, would you like to carry around every album you own? That's ridiculous. I don't want that. But now, not only do we want all of the music we own, we want all of the music. We want to be able to call up any song at any time and listen to it if we want to. And that's developed over time. And it developed, primarily, I think in this case, because of the advent of a product. But people didn't know what they want until they saw it. That's not always the best way to make a business, but it does work sometimes. Oftentimes, people won't say what they want. So you have to figure it out for them and then give it to them and make it easy for them. If you're going to sell something, obviously you want it to be something that people want. So these strategies are talked about in various places in the book and lots of other places as well. Now think about making your customer a hero. That's a pretty cool thing to do, right? And how would you do that? Well, your customer is trying to please other people. So if you can make it where whatever he's doing pleases other people, that makes him look good. I believe the example in this chapter was someone who made spreadsheets to do that. And if your boss wants to see an amazing spreadsheet from you and you know how to do it, then that makes you look good to your boss. And so on and so forth. Okay, so where do ideas for businesses come from? Well, a lot of places. An inefficiency in the marketplace is a great place for a business idea. Finding an inefficiency in the marketplace is super easy. Just carry around a pad with you, and every time something ticks you off, every time you think, why don't they have that, or why can't I find this, write it down. If you do that for a month or two and look over it, you'll find some things that you've written several times. Those will be things that are definite inefficiencies in the marketplace, and you can begin there with how to go forward with a business. Also, any new technology or dramatic changes in the market. I talked about the iPad just a minute ago. That's a pretty big change in the market. And there's other changes. There's a big change in education that's coming around right now. What we're doing here, this online education, didn't exist several years ago, and it's becoming more and more common. There are people that worry that it's becoming so common and so easy to get that the traditional university system is going to cease to exist. I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon, but it might. You could also look, we'll skip the changing space thing, but you can look for spin-offs and side projects. If you can find an area in or near to where you already have something going, then that's a great place for a business idea. For instance, I'm a college professor, so I could look for other opportunities to teach, or I could look for other opportunities to leverage my relationships with faculty, or I could look for perhaps I could write a textbook. A lot of college professors write textbooks. I've actually written some stuff, but I don't sell it. I typically give it away, but I could sell it. So you look for something that you can do that complements what you're already doing. Most of you are students, so if you've developed something in that area that works for you, you might be able to leverage that into something that works for other people that they're willing to pay for. So if you're going to think about your business ideas, you're going to get a lot of them at first, and then you're going to ask a few screening questions about those businesses. First question will be, how will you get paid? For instance, if I wrote a textbook, I would get paid with royalties. If I developed a consulting model for other faculty, I would be paid per the hour for consulting with people. How much would I be paid? Well, that's a question you would have to answer. and residual income. Is what you're doing capable of paying you more than once? And that's a super question. If what you're doing can get you paid more than once, that's awesome, because that means you can do it and then get paid and get paid and get paid. And that's one of the secrets to generating a really, really cool lifestyle. So if you could, for instance, if you write a book like Bernie did with his language book, he wrote that book once, and then every time someone orders it on Amazon, he gets paid. And that's a great model, I think. If you can come up with something that does that. And consulting is awesome, but the second you stop consulting, you stop getting paid. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that's what happens. So if you can think of a model that does have some sort of a residual benefit like that, for instance, if you sell candles, which is a popular network marketing thing. Candles are a great network marketing product, because if you sell candles and people like them, and they're going to burn them, and then they're going to need more candles. So once you've sold this customer one time, you don't have to go through the hard work of selling them again. You just place their reorders, and it becomes much simpler. A lot of businesses work on that basis. Avon and Mary Kay work on that basis. A lot of your vitamin products work on that basis. If you think about, a lot of the stuff you buy at the store, you don't buy it once, you buy it over and over and over again. And to a large measure, that's residual income for the store and for the manufacturers. They did the hard work of getting you to buy their product the first time, and then they get paid over and over again. You do have to keep buying it, and there's a lot of competition, especially in the retail marketplace. So you're going to get that. You're not going to be able to do, just leave it alone in that case. But in many cases, especially if you have a small personal business, you have a personal clientele, the secondary work after you've got someone, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but after you've got someone hooked, the secondary work is not tough at all. It's just call up, say, hey, Bob, how many do you need this week? And that's a pretty good thing. Okay, so follow your passion. Well, not always. But quite often following your passion is cool, and it's a great way to leverage something that you are passionate about. But you have to be extra conscious of the convergence model. You remember, your passion and other people's interests have to overlap. And if it's something you're really, really passionate about, you might not notice other people don't care. I have a 16-year-old son who I love to death, and he loves anime. And he talks to me about it all the time. And I love him, so I listen. And actually, I've started to get interested in it, but it took a long time. It took him telling me over and over and over and over again about things to get me even a little bit interested in it. So there might be something that you absolutely love, and you think, well, everyone would be awesome with this. Everyone loves this. And maybe they don't. So you're going to have to check that as you go through, as you develop your business. You assume quite often that if you would be willing to pay for something, that other people would pay for it as well. And a good test of that is think about something that you're passionate about and you think other people would pay you to learn about. Let's say you wanted to teach them about, in my son's case, anime. If he wanted to open up a, not a school, maybe a school, but 10 anime titles and why they were cool and important. So ask yourself, you already think, yeah, I would pay for that. So ask yourself, did you pay for that? Did you pay to learn what it is that you know now? And quite often the answer is no. And that's all right. Because quite often you can learn something and then you've done the hard work of learning it, and other people will be willing to pay you to bypass that. but quite often also they won't. So if it's something that you're really passionate about, you kind of have to be a little bit more careful about it. Another thing you're going to assume is you're going to assume that if you're passionate about it, everybody else is too. And everybody loves Reds baseball, or everybody loves the Cleveland Cavaliers, or everybody loves barbecue, or it could be anything. You're going to assume that because you love it, everybody else loves it too. And oftentimes that's not true. Oftentimes there's a very small percentage of people that love it. And that doesn't mean it's a bad business idea. That just means that you're going to have to think about it more carefully. For instance, let's think again. Anime seems to be on my mind today, so let's think about that. Let's say you make a character guidebook for some anime title, and you go to sell it in Cincinnati. Well, maybe not one person in 10,000 in Cincinnati is interested in this. So it seems like on the surface of it, there's no way this is going to make money, right? And that seems like a reasonable assumption, is this is just dumb because I don't have a big enough audience. But because we have the internet and because the world's a big place, even the craziest far out ideas can have an audience. So you could make this anime book, and if only one person in 10,000 is interested in it, but you take 6 billion people in the world, you could still make a little bit of money off that book. Another example is most people take caffeine in some form, and that form is usually either coffee or tea or soda of some kind. You get a little bit from chocolate, but it doesn't really give you that buzz. What if you could take your caffeine in the morning while you were taking a shower? What if your soap was your source of caffeine? Is that weird? Who would be interested in that? If you're listening to this, you're probably saying, that's a dumb idea. And it probably is for you. And it is for me. I have no desire to use soap. Caffeine, by the way, can be absorbed through your skin. And there is a soap called Shower Shock. And if you had to sell Shower Shock in Kroger, it would be a failure. But if you wanted to sell it online and find just that group of people who are interested in it, it could be quite profitable. So the product is called Shower Shock. And if you want to go out and look for it, you can find it at thinkgeek.com. And it's one of those products that not very many people want. But because the overall market that we're allowed to reach through the internet is huge, it actually works out. Okay. So, moving from passion to paycheck, you don't typically get paid for your passion. No matter how much you like about anime or whatever, or how much you like caffeine, you don't get paid for it. You get paid for helping other people with their passion. A great example is golf. I don't know how many people get paid to play golf, but it's not very many. Even at any level, there's only a few people making money playing golf. But a lot of people who can't get paid to play golf can get paid to teach people to play golf. Other people get paid for making golf things. I've invented a golf gadget. I don't know if I'm going to market it. We're still working on that. But other people get paid in that arena. Go to a sporting goods store and just look at all the various things that are made for golf. And there's each one of those things probably has an entrepreneur behind it somewhere that's making his living out of his passion, which is golf, even though maybe he can't drive 100 yards. Other people own golf courses and driving ranges. Some people fit clubs and refit clubs. One person over in the town that I used to live in before I became a professor lives near a golf course, and he makes a pretty good living by collecting all of the golf balls that are hit off of the golf course. As once they're off the golf course, if no one picks them up, they're sort of fair game. He goes out and gets them. And when people get fed up with golf, they sell him their clubs very cheaply, and he cleans them up and sells them for a nice, tidy profit. So, you know, he has a passion for golf, and he's leveraged that into something that he can actually use as a nice little lifestyle business. So, if you have an idea, should you or shouldn't you launch a business based on that idea? Well, it's always a personal question. Things that you're going to want to ask yourself is, do you want to work on it? You know, do you want to spend time in this business? Do you want to spend time actually working in this business, maybe doing parts of it you don't enjoy? Do you enjoy teaching others this particular business? Do you like the details of the business? And would doing paperwork around this stuff, would that just make it a buzzkill for you? Because if it would, maybe you should consider not doing it. You can also ask the market, how's, I'm sorry, when I say ask the market, what I mean is figure out if there is a market. Do other people already ask you for help? Somewhere in this book, there's a guy who does frequent flyer mileage redemptions. I'm not sure where he is, but his business literally started because people kept asking him for help, and in order to get the number of requests down, because he couldn't help everybody that wanted help, he had to start charging people. And that's, if you've got a lot of people asking you for your help on something, set a price for it, and then see how it works. Is the market big enough? And big enough is definitely a very relative term. Is it big enough to support you? Is it big enough to create a side income? The market does not have to be big enough to make you rich. It doesn't even have to be big enough to support you. It just needs to be big enough to be profitable and make you feel like it's worthwhile for you to do it. One good indicator is, are there other businesses in the space? Because if there are, that's good. That means that there is a market out there. If you think of something that you want to do and no one else is doing anything remotely close to it, maybe the idea is fantastic. But more likely, it's not fantastic and not a lot of people are interested in it. Don't let that talk you out of it. But think about it that way. If this were such a good idea, why hasn't anyone else thought of it? Is a good question to ask yourself. And are you doing something subtly different, or even a lot different from other people in the space? Because if you are, that's even better. As an example, one of the things that I really like to do is improvisational theater. So if we run through these questions, would I want to do that for 20 or more hours a week? Yeah, I think it would be fun. I probably don't want to give up my present career to do it, but if I didn't have my present career, or if something came about, could I do improv 20 hours a week? Yeah, I could. Do I enjoy teaching other people this? Yeah, I do. Do I like the details of it? I love the details of it, so absolutely. Would doing the paperwork around making this a business kill it for me? That's a hard question for me, because the paperwork around anything kills it for me. It really does not matter. I don't like doing paperwork at all. But if I'm going to have a business, that's a necessary sacrifice I have to make, so I guess I can answer no to that. Do others ask you for your help? Well, others used to ask me for help when I was in that space. and others ask me for help on teaching and stuff like that now. So I would say yes to that. Is the market big enough? Absolutely. There are huge opportunities in improv theater. Improv theater, people learn improv to be more confident at work. People learn it to be entertaining. Absolutely, that's good. Are there other businesses in this space? Yes, a lot of them. Well, not a lot, but a fair number. And would I do something subtly or even greatly different from them? I've actually thought about that, and I think if I did improv theater, improvisational theater is almost exclusively focused on comedy. And I think that's awesome and that's fun. But I think if I were to do improv theater in order to differentiate myself, I would focus on drama. I would focus on creating real life characters with a lot of meat that people could develop over the improv format. So yeah, I think there's something I could do that is different. So should I or shouldn't I? Well, I like my present opportunity better, but do I have a passion for it? Yeah. Do I have a skill for it? Yeah. Is there a market? Yeah. Is there a solvable problem? Well, my twist on this is interesting, but I don't know if it solves a problem. I don't know if anyone's out there thinking, I wish I could do improv but didn't have to be funny. So I would have to do some market research to determine that. I think that it solves a problem, but again, I'm not sure. Okay, so the last sentence of this chapter says that you have to find the right business model, but it doesn't really explain what a business model is. So let's talk about a couple things. First, one definition of a business model is designed for the successful operation of a business, identifying revenue sources, customer base, products, and details of financing. Okay, that seems like a perfectly good place to start. Let's look at For Dummies. Business Models for Dummies says a business model isn't something you build from the ground up. When management ask about a business model, so what's your business model? What they really want to know is how do you plan to make money? Which leads to other questions. Who's your customers? What problem are you solving? What value do you deliver? And so on and so forth. So that's generally what we're talking about. Now this topic gets really complicated. If you want to go more in depth on business models, there's obviously the For Dummies book that I just mentioned. There's also a book called the Business Model Navigator, which dissects 55 business models. There's also a book called Business Model Generation, along with another book called Value Proposition Generation, which is sort of a companion book to Business Model Generation. They're both really good. If you have any questions about business models, then just email me or let me know, and I will see what I can do. If you're in my class, we can talk about it whenever it comes up. This chapter comes with an instant consultant template. So the instant consultant template, basically, what is it that you know how to do that other people might pay to learn, and how can you leverage that? So I'm actually looking for it right now so I don't misquote it. Yeah. Okay, so you have an idea. Pick something specific. Don't put yourself out there as a business consultant or life coach or something like that. When I do consulting, I have two basic things I do. One is process-based consulting, which is basically I go in to solve a specific problem. The other thing that I do is startup consulting. And startup consulting is, I specialize in very early pre-revenue stage businesses, which, by the way, not a great place to specialize, because pre-revenue means they don't have any money to pay you. Okay, so if you're going to do an instant consultant thing, you should charge at least an hour, $100 an hour is the guideline in this book. If you have credentials, you should charge significantly more than that. You should probably work through this and figure out what is it that you are most likely to be able to charge for as a consultant, and at least work through the worksheet and give it a shot and see how it comes out for you. Okay, so let's move on. Location independence. The rise of the location-independent entrepreneur and geo-arbitrage. So, geo-arbitrage is a success strategy, and it's not an uncommon one. It's not for everyone, and it has its limitations. But think about how much things cost in relative places, or how much things cost relatively in various places. There's a scene in Men in Black 1 or 2 where someone says they can get a lobster dinner for $2 in, like Vietnam or something like that. So if you're making $15 an hour in the United States, and you can buy a lobster dinner for $2, then that lobster dinner cost you very little. But if you have to pay $60 for that lobster dinner, it costs you 4 hours work. So if you can earn your money in the United States, but spend your money somewhere else, then you don't have to make nearly as much money to be really very successful. So that's what geo-arbitrage is all about. Now, there are some things that are really, really hard to do with geo-arbitrage. If you're making and selling physical goods, that's tough. But if you're writing ebooks, if you're writing articles for internet publication or even physical publication, if you are doing spreadsheet analysis, if you're doing web design or coding, in general, anything that you can do in the digital world is really good for geo-arbitrage. And if you don't have to work with other people on a time schedule, so much the better. As one of the minor hang-ups you have in location independence is, yes, you can live in Vietnam, but when it's time to get on a conference call with your boss and your boss's boss, it's going to be 9 in the morning for them and 2:30 in the morning for you. That's an example. I have no idea the time difference here in Vietnam. So that's somewhat of a limiting factor. But other than the occasional thing like that, there's a whole lot of stuff you can do in that space. And one thing, obviously, I mentioned is publishing. If you look at no physical goods, no strict time commitments, and no mission critical connectivity issues, being your own publisher, which is another of the handouts that go with this book, is a great thing. Think about what is it that you know that you could write about, that you could publish, that people could buy. And it could be, or just read. It doesn't even have to be buy. You could do a blog and then have ads on the blog, or sell products within what you're writing about. Let's say you're writing about mountain climbing. You could write about mountain climbing and then 1 week have a an Amazon link for mountain climbing hammers, and another week have a link for winter parkas or whatever. I'm not real familiar with mountain climbing, but you get the idea. So Be Your Own Publisher is on page 69 in the book, and all of these handouts are at the $100startup.com. Um, so yeah, this is the second time we're encountering location as a variable in our lifestyle design. So thinking about location independence, um, look into it. A good place to look into it is the Art of Nonconformity blog. The 4 Hour Work Week is a good book. There are podcasts, the Tropical MBA podcast, the Suitcase Entrepreneur podcast, Nomad Utopia, and Travel Freedom are all good podcasts that talk about this. So if you're thinking about location independence, start the business first. But when you start the business, don't make the location important. Find a way. If you're thinking location independence, you don't want a retail store. That's pretty obvious. The second thing, get a high value passport if you don't have one. Getting a passport from a country other than yours is hard. So if you're not listening in the first world, this might be a difficult thing for you. But look into it if you can. If you can get to Singapore, if you can live in Singapore for 2 years, you can get a Singapore passport, which is a good one. Brazil is doable. From what I've heard, it's not the most straightforward process, but it can be done. If you are or legitimately want to become Jewish, you can get an Israeli passport. You do have to become Jewish, and it has to be for real. This is not something you can just say, yeah, I'm Jewish. And a Belgian passport's a pretty good one that you can get with 3 years of residency. Another thing you're going to want to look at is Visa HQ, because if you're going to travel, you're probably at some point going to need help with getting a visa, which is a permission to enter or exit certain countries. Remember, use services online like Dropbox. Laptops get stolen, data gets corrupted, all kinds of stuff like that happens. There's nothing you can do about it. Anything worth saving is worth saving on the cloud. If you're going to do location independence, enjoy the trip. Don't focus exclusively on getting the job done and then not having any fun while you're there. So if you're going to be there anyway, take time and smell the roses, as they say. Okay, last topic for this podcast or video or whatever we're going to call it is demographics. Okay, so demographic data is important to us all. Generally, one of the first things that we ask online when we meet strangers online is ASL, which is age, sex, and location, because those things are important to us. If I'm a 45-year-old man, I don't want to be talking with a 13-year-old girl. We have nothing in common. We're not gonna have a very good conversation. Not to mention, there might be legal ramifications if someone misinterprets what I'm talking about. If you're online, for business purposes, age, sex, and location may be super important, or it may not. If you're back on the anime thing, anime skews younger, but my son has introduced me to several people my age that are really, really into it. It seems to go across gender and definitely across location. More popular in Japan than anywhere else, but very popular in the United States. So in that case, the demographics are marginally important. Income may be important, especially if your product is expensive. Race and ethnicity may be important if your product has a racial or ethnic component. A common industry that does have a racial or ethnic component is the hair care industry. There are hair care products that are made for people with certain hair types, there are makeup products made for people with certain skin tones. So if you're selling something like that, it's probably important. If you're not, it's likely not. In addition, we have psychographic data. what's important to you? What do you believe? What do what are your ideals? It's very weird, actually. The examples in this book, they initially made no sense to me. Think about Kinetic Coffee. For those of you who have read the book, they have coffee that's branded around being outdoorsy, which I don't understand how those things go together. How is someone who likes the outdoors different in their coffee purchases than someone who doesn't like the outdoors? So on the surface of it, that seems like why would you exclude all of the people who like to just sit and drink coffee? Well, the reason that they did that, I think, is that the coffee market's really crowded. And if they tried to attract everybody, they would end up attracting nobody. And that's a great lesson for any business, is that if you try to serve everybody, you end up not being special at all. So they basically said, hey, we're willing to sacrifice our sales in the broad market for loyalty in a narrower market, which is cool. And it actually works for them. Tom Ben bags, which if you don't own a Tom Ben bag, if you don't know anything about them, you should look them up. They're not the only custom travel bag maker out there, but they're a really cool one. I have a couple of their products and I'm thrilled with them. I did learn about them through Chris's book here, and well, actually before his book, but through Chris, I learned about them, and they're pretty awesome. I think that their market niche are people who want or need quality travel products and who see themselves as nonconformists and who have or mid to up market, have some free cash. They actually were approached to put their products in stores at one time, and they said they didn't want to do that because they didn't want to become a commodity. They didn't want to have to worry about sacrificing their quality to meet a store's demand, as often happens with companies like Walmart. Walmart will continue pushing on your price point to where you end up having to sacrifice quality, and they just didn't want to do any of that. So they said, we're going to market to these people, and these people will buy our bags, and these people will keep us in business, which seemed to work out well for them. As you develop your businesses over time, look at your best customers, try to figure out what makes them a group and what appeals to that group. There are tools that we can use, a customer profile or end user profile, or even developing a persona helps. If you want to go more in depth into that, there's a book by Bill Aulette that explains that. I'll try to remember to put it in the notes. Disciplined Entrepreneurship, that's what it is. It's called Disciplined Entrepreneurship, and if you walk through that those 3 sections in that book will help you to determine exactly who your customers are. Then once you do that, you can market just to those customers. That way your marketing dollars aren't wasted. And especially with being able to access social media these days, you can go on Facebook and buy Facebook advertising for left-handed people between 5'10" and 6'2" who like to play basketball on 9-foot basketball goals, or something similar. That might not be exactly true, but you get the point. Okay, so one popular way of building a business is to leverage current trends. Figure out what's popular and jump on that bandwagon. Find hobbies that a lot of people have. People will spend more money on their hobbies and passions than they will on their necessities. A lot of times people will skimp on their necessities, the things that they have to live in order to do the things that they want to do. And if you don't believe that, consider the fact that McDonald's exists. McDonald's does not really provide nutrition, but they sure sell a lot of food. So, look at something that's a hobby, and you might that might be a good place to start. Also, remember, if you do jump on a bandwagon or start with a hobby, those things fall out of fashion after a while. After a while, they just they're not popular anymore. One example that I can think of is racquetball. Racquetball got hugely popular, and then it just wasn't popular anymore. Lots of other things have done that over the years. Wakeboarding was hugely popular for a while, and now it's not as. So consider that. All right. So once you have a tribe of people following you, once you have a meaningful customer base, you can ask them questions. Ask them questions that you really want to know the answers to, and they will really answer you. You can also ask people that aren't your customers. The problem is, a lot of times they're just going to want to tell you what you want to hear, because they're looking more to avoid conflict than to actually give you information. So if you can at all, get information from people who are already definitely interested in your products or services. Okay, so I talked about the bug list earlier in this discussion. So let's also look at a decision-making matrix. If you've got multiple ideas, how do you decide which one to follow? So let's look at a decision-making matrix. So here's mine. I've pre-populated it with a couple possible ideas so we can see how this works out. Just need to make it big for everybody. There we go. All right, so this is a decision-making matrix. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ideas that I've put in here. I've listed them under idea. There we go. Now, to make a decision on all of these ideas, I've got time. How much time is the idea going to take? Fit. How well does it fit with what I'm currently doing? EP, which is earnings potential. Enjoy. How much will I enjoy it? And new knowledge. How much new knowledge does it take? So, let's say startup consulting. Time. I can probably give, let's see, 40 hours a week would be a 5, and let's see, okay, sorry. On time, we're going to say the less time it takes, the better it is for me. So if it takes no time or very little time, it's going to be a 5. If it takes a lot of time, it's going to be a 1. So which of these takes the least amount of time to do? Probably this one and this one, because consulting will only take the amount of time I'm actually doing it. Locksmithing is a definite 1, because that's going to take to generate that, you're basically working by the hour. To set up a junket is a trip. And one idea that I've had for spare money involving something that I like to do is setting up, a trip to Las Vegas and charging a bunch of people to take them and show them stuff. I'm going to say that's going to take 3. And then another idea I'm working on is a box business. And if I launch that business, that's going to be sort of an all-consuming business, so that's a 1. Fit. Well, 5 is best, 1 is bad. So 5 fits. Startup consulting fits with what I'm doing. Vegas junk is a 3. Locksmithing doesn't fit with what I'm currently doing, but I definitely have the skill set to do it. Oh, that's supposed to be a 3. There we go. Locksmith consulting, probably a little more than locksmithing. And the box business doesn't really fit with what I'm doing. Earnings potential. Well, startup consulting, as I've mentioned before, not the best. Vegas junkets, there are multiple ways to get paid on that. They're pretty good. Locksmithing is a job type fit. Locksmith consulting is better. The box business has very high earnings potential. Enjoyment, startup consulting, I enjoy doing that a lot. Vegas junket, I would enjoy a lot. Locksmithing, I don't really enjoy that much. Locksmith consulting, I enjoy a little bit more than locksmithing. The box business, I don't know how much I'll enjoy that. Okay, new knowledge. Okay, so let's add another one out here for total. And then let's go 100%, zoom to selection again. Oh, no, zoom, come on. Okay, zoom. Oh, sorry about this. I'm trying to get it to do what I want it to do, and it doesn't want to. Okay, so let's go to selection and zoom to selection. Alright, there we go. So NK, new knowledge. Startup consulting requires 0 new knowledge, so that's a 5. Vegas junkets do require me to learn some new things, so that's a 3. Locksmithing, there actually is some new knowledge there. 6 again. Locksmith consulting, also same. The box business is going to be a lot of new knowledge, so that's more. Now, I have a lot of new knowledge as being a bad thing because that's more that I have to learn. So now we're going to say equals sum of the previous. Okay, so it looks like my first choice should probably be startup consulting, followed by locksmithing consulting, followed by Vegas junkets, and then I should probably not do locksmithing or the box business. Now, what if I were to say the single most important thing was my earnings potential? So what we're going to do is we're going to give earnings potential a value of double everything else. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to double these numbers and see how that changes things. So having done that, we get the same thing. Oops. The point is you can modify this decision-making matrix in order to make a decision based on factors that are important to you. That's sort of what we're looking at here. All right, so that's the first third of the $100 startup. That's the unexpected entrepreneurs section. I encourage you to do the sheets that are in this section, as well as come up with some business ideas, first by using a bug list, then by plugging them into the decision-making matrix. Come up with criteria that matter to you. If you have plenty of time and new knowledge is a good thing as opposed to a bad thing, then you would score this as the reverse of this. If you don't care about new knowledge at all, as far as it doesn't affect whether or not you want to do a business one way or the other, you could leave it out. You might have completely different ideas. For instance, earnings potential might be the single most important thing for you, or it might be not important at all. You might have something like philanthropy, so we'll just call it philanthropy. So startup consulting would be like a 5 on philanthropy. Vegas junkets would be a 1. Locksmithing would be a 1. Locksmith consulting would be maybe a 3, and that would be a 1. Because I know I'm giving away my time. I mean, there's some earnings potential, but not much. I scored that wrong. Anyway, you get the idea of how this works. All right. Well, that's it for this. That's it for this edition, and we will have a new one sometime soon. Thanks for dropping in. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you think. Bye.